Do you get overwhelmed learning too many random Photoshop tips and techniques and then struggle to remember them when it's time to actually edit a photo? Or do you keep learning new stuff and forgetting what you already knew? Or when you stop editing for a while, you have to waste time relearning it all when you start back up again? If so, then keep watching, because I'm going to share my simple system that eliminates these problems for good, so you can just get on with putting what you learn to great use in your photos. First, it's important to understand the main reason why remembering lots of different techniques is such a challenge, because it's probably not what you're thinking. You see, what most people do when watching videos on YouTube or taking various courses is this. They'll watch the video or lesson to see how it's done, they'll watch it again, but following along with the steps to try it on their own photo. And then if they're really keen, they'll try it out a few more times on a handful of photos without following along with the video. And then the technique gets committed to that special place in your brain that seems to get flushed out every night when you sleep, and only vague memories remain when you wake up the next day. So how can you actually solve this? One way is to follow these 3 simple steps. Step 1. Categorize techniques in a different way to how you're probably filing them away in your noggin right now. Because the way most people doing it is kind of like keeping all your friends and family's phone numbers in numerical order instead of indexing them by name first. Because when you need to call someone, you don't try to remember a big list of numbers and then see if you get through to the right person. You go, I need to call Bob. I'll dial Bob's number. The Photoshop equivalent of that is when you sit down and you go, right, now I need to add a curves adjustment, move this part of it up here, this part of the curve down here, and now let's see what this gives me. When what you really should do is look at your image, and if it needs some contrast in the foreground, let's say, then you do the specific technique that produces that effect. So the first step really boils down to this. Shift how you think of techniques from this is a technique, here's how to do it, to this is an outcome, and here's the technique that produces that outcome. In other words, shifting from a process first to an outcome first mindset. This step alone isn't the magic pill to make you automatically remember how to do something again next time, but it is the first critical precursor to step 2, which is to take an inventory of all the techniques that you currently know how to do and index them by the effect that they have on a photo. So do it on a pad or on a computer, whatever's best for you. And then for each technique that you learn in the future, you can just add it to your list alongside a reference to where you learned it, so you can look up the specific steps again if you need to later.
Great advice, Steve. Make a list. You genius.
Yeah, good point, other Steve, but it's actually more than that. Because first, it frees up your brain from trying to actually remember everything all at once. But critically, next time you edit a photo, instead of approaching it from a process-first perspective of, I'm going to use this technique, then this technique, then this technique, because those are currently the ones I remember how to do, you can approach it from an outcome-first perspective of, what does the image actually need right now? Okay, let's brighten these shadows. I have a technique for that. Let's enhance the contrast in the foreground. I have a technique for that. So hopefully you can see where this is going. And it sounds great so far, but the real magic comes in step 3. So let's say you've been doing this for a bit and you have a growing list of techniques, their outcomes, and a reference to where you can quickly look them up again if you need to recall the actual steps. Now, step 3 of this process is to group your list of techniques into a handful of categories. For example, create a category for color enhancements, contrast and drama, sharpening, selective masking, and so on. And then once you have those categories, just rearrange them into a specific order, and hey presto, you just created a repeatable step-by-step editing workflow for yourself. You can skip that step if you want and use my 6-stage workflow, which tens of thousands of photographers have downloaded so far. You can click the link in the description or pinned comment to get that for free. But whether you use my workflow categories or your own, the end result is that you A, have a list of techniques sorted by outcome first that you can refer to when you need to achieve each outcome, rather than feeling lost because you kind of feel the urge to use a certain technique, but you can't remember why or how. And B, you have a structure for filing away each new technique that you're going to learn going forward, so they're impossible to forget. And what will end up happening is you'll kind of reach a point where you have multiple techniques listed that all give basically the same outcome, and you'll realize how many of them you don't actually need, clogging up your workflow and your brain. Now, with that said, keeping your list nice and lean has other benefits too. The fewer different techniques you're actually using on a regular basis, the easier you'll actually remember them, so you won't have to actually refer back to your list very often. And plus, it'll add a level of consistency to your finished edits too, because you're basically making the same editing decisions and then using the same techniques to edit all of your images. And as another great bonus, it actually makes it easier to test how introducing a new technique into your workflow is actually going to affect the outcome, because when everything else stays the same, you can properly judge what difference a new technique makes to your photos. Now, when it comes to individual techniques, there is one that I highly recommend that you get good at, because it improves the effectiveness of virtually every other image adjustment you could possibly make. So watch this next video to see what it is and the easiest way to incorporate it into your editing.